Welcome to Excel Basics number 4, where we get to talk all about date and time formulas. We have 25 formulas all the way down. Scroll down to 20 date formulas and then 6 amazing time formulas. Now, I'm filming from home because we had a huge storm on the West Coast and my school is closed down. So the camera is precariously balanced, so if it falls over in the middle of the video, don't worry, I'll pick it up. All right, let's go over to the sheet Date Serial Numbers. Now we'll start off talking about the amazing dates that exist in Excel all the way back to the first spreadsheet before Lotus 123 VisiCalc. Now when we enter a date, I'm in the US, so I'm going to enter month, day, year. You can check how to enter dates on your computer by going to Window, type Date, Date and Time Settings, and then we'll select Region. And I'm in English United States, and there's how various dates and times will appear. Close. So I'm going to enter the invoice due date, and this is a scenario that I used to have to do all the time running gel boomerangs. Back before I used Excel, I did it all by hand. Invoice due date today, and then we're going to see how many days late that invoice is. So I'm going to start with month slash day slash, and I'm going to type the full year 2024. Now, before I hit enter, I should have showed you this before. Notice that in gray, that cell had general number formatting. But when I type a date, I'm actually typing a date number format as I type. So when I control enter, we could see there's a date number format up here. Now, when you're entering historical transactions in Excel, a killer keyboard shortcut is control semicolon. That means today's date. So control semicolon. Then I hit enter. And back in the day when I used to do days, invoices, or late by hand, I'd take out the calculator, use my fingers, but not in Excel. Equal sign. And it's the later date, so I'm going to up arrow, minus, up arrow, earlier date. So the formula over here, later date minus earlier date, that will always give you, when I control enter, the number of days between these two dates. And properly, the first day is not included in invoicing. That is the way it works. F2, that simple little formula, somehow looked at these dates and knew exactly how many days there were between the two dates. Now let's come down here because we got to figure out really what is going on behind the scenes. Control semicolon for today's date. Control enter. And remember the keyboard to apply general number formatting, that's our eraser. Control shift tilde or grave accent. And what? 45,616. Yes, that's a serial number date. It's actually the number of days since December 31st, 1899. If you type in 11-1900, well, underneath there's a serial number 1. That's the first day that Excel knows. 1-2-1900, well, there's a 2 under there. That 2 represents the number of days since December 31st, 1899. And that is why, if I select these two cells, Control, Shift, grave accent, tilde, there were really just some numbers under there which allowed the formula to do subtraction, Control Z, even though there was some date number formatting on top. Really, if you think all the way back to the beginning of the spreadsheet, what a clever invention to have date number formatting, but these numbers underneath so we can do all the date and time math we want. Now, if we scroll down, here's a little table with dates, and this is really what is underneath. If I highlight these, including some days from the past and one way in the future, and use Control Shift tilde, sure enough, you could see those are the serial numbers underneath. Control Z. Any date before 1-1-1900, that's considered text. In Power Query later, as we'll see, Power Query actually understands dates going way back in history. But in the Excel worksheet, these are considered text. And if you see pound or railroad tracks on a cell that contains a date, that means the column isn't wide enough. And I have this typed in here, but if we come over and make the column too narrow, sure enough, those pound symbol says, hey, give me some more room, widen that column. So I'll widen the column. Another very convenient thing about Excel is we're allowed all sorts of different date and number formats, even though the same serial number will always be underneath. If I select this cell and use Control 1, I'm going to select this one right here. Whoa, it'll show me day, month. Click OK. There's the railroad track saying, hey, I'm not wide enough, so I'm going to click and drag. Control 1, I can show just month and day. Click OK. Control 1, I might even show something like day, month, year. Click OK. And I want to teach you custom number formatting because for dates and times, it's very important. It's very simple first off, so it's easy to remember, but it's very important because it will help us out with lots of formulas. M, if we type in M where we get to where we type custom number formatting, that represents month, D day, Y year. So I'm going to click in the cell, Control 1, and sure enough, down to custom. And you can see this format, M, that means show the month as a number with no leading zero. D, that means the day with no leading zero. And then 4 Ys, that means show the full year. I want to click right at the beginning or hit the home key. And then watch the preview here. D, comma, space. Whoa, so I can type my own number formatting. 3 Ds means the abbreviation. If I type a fourth, I see the full day name. Same for month. That's the number with no leading zeros. 2 M's would mean show the leading zero. That's the abbreviation. That's the full name. Back. We'll leave it like that. Click OK. And under every single one of these date number formatting, that serial number is still there, so we're allowed to do date math. Now, let's go over to date and F. I have a little table here that shows you some examples. I have the same date all the way down. I used a locked cell reference. And if I apply just D, well, I get the day number without a leading zero. 2 Ds, well, there's the leading zero. DDD, abbreviation, 4 Ds, the full day name. Here are some more examples. Notable, Y, just Y will give you 24 for 2024, and all you have to do is put 3 Ys to get 2024. All right, let's go over to formulas 1 to 5. All right, on 1 to 5, we have 5 questions. How many days until school starts? How many days is the invoice past due? We just did that one. How many days was the loan outstanding? For all of these, we simply take end minus start. Start is not included, and that gives us the days between these two dates. But if we have a question, how many days did the project take? If the first day counts, we're going to have to remember to add 1. How many days of vacation including the first day? Well, you're going to have to add 1. All right, equals left arrow minus left arrow, left arrow. That really is end minus start. Control Enter, 42 days. Now I can copy this formula down, F2, because those are relative cell references. I'm going to copy it down. Here we get 2 days. What? Wait a second. 28 to 1. Oh, that's leap year. 2024 is leap year. So it's really 29 and then 1. So F2, that's pretty amazing. Excel knows leap year. And then, of course, how many days was the loan outstanding? 120. Now, how many days did the project take? Well, we started on 12/27, and that day we actually worked. So equals later date minus earlier date. And don't forget, if the first day is included, you just add 1. Control Enter, 65 days. And then how many days of vacation including the first day? Well, I'm going to copy the formula down. F2, sure enough, later minus earlier, plus 1. And we have 43 days of vacation. All right, let's go over to the sheet formula 6 to 7. Now on this sheet, we want to figure out the difference between two dates, but we only want to count work days. Now there's an amazing function called NETWORKDAYS.INTL that makes this easy. Now I remember before this function came out, you had to create some crazy formulas if you wanted to count work days. Actually, at the Mr. Excel message board, a forum where we post questions, it didn't matter what crazy date scenario you had for counting work days, this guy Barry Houdini would always come up with a great formula. Actually, they should have called NETWORKDAYS.INTL just Barry Houdini. All right, here's the scenario. How many work days are there? And Friday and Saturday are non-work days. Equals net, and the net work days without the .international, that's an older one that only did Saturdays and Sundays, but we want the .international because they have a new argument that allows us to say what days are non-work days. Now notice this is a function, so they're asking for start day first, comma, end date, comma, and look at this, there's an amazing drop down. We have Friday and Saturday, and sure enough, 7 means Friday and Saturday should be skipped when it calculates the difference between two dates. So I'm going to double click, and holidays, you just put them off to the side, and it'll skip these two. Close parentheses, Control Enter, and sure enough, 38 days. Now, when you do this for the first time, you might be thinking, like, how do I know if that's correct? You can check off to the side. Now let's list the first day. 1/21/2024, Control Enter. Now we could definitely click and copy this, but I gotta show you a great trick. That fill handle is in the corner, and hover your cursor, and when you see the crosshair or angry rabbit, don't left click, right click, hold, drag down, drag back up, let go, and up pops a secret menu, and we want series. We want the dates to go down a column. I oftentimes forget and shoot them this way. Date, the increment 1 day at a time, and all I have to do is say what the stop day is. 3/14/2024, and when I click OK, I have my list of dates. Now I want to see what day each one is, so Control Shift down arrow to highlight all the way to the bottom, Control backspace, Control 1, and let's go down to custom, and right at the beginning, I'm just going to put DDD, comma, space, enter to enact that OK button, and now I'm going to go through the list and remove or delete all holidays and Fridays and Saturdays. Once I got rid of all the dates I don't want, those are date serial numbers, so we can use count to count the number of numbers. Now notice I'm having to drag because there's too many empty cells. Control backspace and enter, and sure enough I get 38. All right, let's scroll over, and now we have Wednesday and Sunday as the weekend equals NETWORKDAYS.INTL, start, comma, end, comma. Uh-oh, I'm looking through the drop-down. I do not see Wednesday and Sunday, but Microsoft gave us a way to combine any non-work and working days. We put together in double quotes, zeros and ones. One means we're not working that day. So, quote, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we put a 1. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and 1 for Sunday, end double quote. And that allows us to create any pattern we want of weekends. Highlight holidays, close parentheses, and Control Enter. We get 35. All right, now the first 7 formulas were all about counting the number of days between two dates. Now we want to talk about how to add a number directly to a date or subtract a number directly from a date. Let's go over to the sheet formula 8 to 11. All right, let's start off by figuring out how to add days to a date to get a future date. Here's a great question. Hey, when is the loan due? It was issued on 9/5, and this loan has to be paid back in 120 days. Now, of course, like invoicing, that date is not included. So if we simply add it, that'll give us the future date. Hey, there's the start date plus 120. And when I control enter, it looks like the loan's going to be paid back on 1/3/2025. Now, how about what is the end date for a project? First day is included. Oh, so we want work days because Friday and Saturday are non-work days. Just like there's NETWORKDAYS.INTL equals work, not work day. That just assumes Saturday and Sunday. We want .international. Now, this is the start date, but if we plop 40 in there, it's going to start counting the next day, and this day should be included. So what are we going to do? If I want this day included, I'm going to push the start date in the function 1 day back. So -1, that means it'll start on 11/16. So 11/17 will be counted, comma, days 40, comma, weekend 7, that's the Friday, Saturday. And we're going to assume no holidays for this example, even though this spans Christmas. Close parentheses, and it looks like the end date, 1/9/2025. Now let's do the reverse. Instead of adding, we're going to subtract days from a date to get a past date. When was the loan issued? Oh, right. This is when they paid it back. They had 120 days, so we can simply take that date. It'll start subtracting the previous day, so we minus 120, and bam, 9/5/2023. That's exactly what we had up here. Well, it's not exactly what we had up there because looks like I mistyped this, but the beauty of Excel. Formula input changes, I change it, and bam, 9/5/2024. That's exactly what we have up here. Now, what about the project? We know the day it ended, and we just want to know what day it started. Well, equals, we're going to use that lovely WORKDAY.INTL. That'll calculate a date for us. Now we have to, again, be careful here, right? It wants to start subtracting the day before on the 8th. And since this day is included, I have to push it to the 10th. So when it starts subtracting, it's going to use 1/9. So I'm going to add 1, comma, minus 40 days, comma, the weekend, 7, and poor workers, they're not going to get Christmas and New Year's Eve off, but no holidays. Control enter, and sure enough, we get 11/17/2024, just as we got up here. So of course, we're allowed to add and subtract numbers directly from dates. Why? Because dates are just serial numbers. All right, let's go to our next example, formula 12 to 15. Now on this sheet, we want to learn how to move a date a number of months forward, which would be a positive number, or backwards, that would be a negative number. Now we're going to get to learn about the amazing functions, EDATE and EOMONTH, end of month. Here's a great question. When does my pension plan vest? And that means when is the employer, after you work there a long time, going to finally give you the pension? Well, if this is the start date and it takes 60 months until you get your pension, we can jump 60 months forward with EDATE. It just needs a start date, and then you tell it, comma, months to move forward, positive, backwards, negative, or to the current month would be 0. That would be silly for this function because it would be the same date. 60 months, control enter, and so you have to wait until 1/22/2029 to get your pension. Now I show you this just as an insert because sometimes you'll get a pension calculation and the amount of time it takes is in years. Well, in that case, you just put 5 in, and since 12 never changes, you just multiply whatever years times 12 months. And of course, that will give you the same date. Now, what about this one? What is the last day of this month? Well, 2/20, and we're going to use the great function EOMONTH. Similar to EDATE, it just needs a start date, comma, and then positive, negative, or 0. That means the end of the month for the current month, which, when I select 0, control enter, Sure enough, Excel knows leap year. All right, here's two invoicing examples. What day is an invoice due if it is due on the same day 2 months ahead? We're jumping months, so that's EDATE equals EDATE. Start, comma, 2 months ahead, Control Enter, and the amount will be owed by 3/22/2024. And by the way, in invoicing, there are all sorts of different ways of calculating the due date. These are two. There are many others. What day is the invoice due if it is due at the end of next month? Well, end of month, so we know it's equals EO. There's the start date, and it's next month. That's in the future, so 1 as a positive number. Close parentheses, Control Enter. And this invoice is due on 2/29/2024. All right, so when you need to jump months forwards or backwards, you can use EDATE. When you need to determine end of months, you use EOMONTH. All right, let's go to formula 16 to 20. And sometimes we have serial number dates, and we just want to extract the year, the month, or the day. There are easy to interpret functions like year, and notice it says serial number. When I click on that date and hit enter, it extracted the year 2024. For month, it delivers 1 to 12. Notice it says serial number. When I hit enter, 11 equals day. It still says serial number, and when I hit enter, 17. Now the question is, what if you really want day name, like we saw how to do with custom number formatting? Well, we actually can use custom number formatting in formulas, and the function you use is text. It takes any value, any number, we tell it what kind of custom number formatting we want, and it will convert that number to text showing the number as whatever the formatting is. So we want that date, comma, and it's got to be in double quotes. And let's do D. And sure enough, whatever day that is, Control Enter, Sunday. You can imagine that we're going to use the same function if we want month, comma, but M is for month. We'll do 3-letter abbreviation, N double quote, close parentheses, and November. Now, these functions come in handy in lots of tools in Excel, in Power Pivot, in Power BI, although in Power BI it's called format, not text, because you create a date table with all the date attributes, and then you use those in reports. All right, now we want to go scroll over and talk about time. Let's go to the sheet time serial numbers. Now we need to talk about time values, and the first thing we want to do is figure out how to enter times into Excel. You always start with the hour, and then a colon, minutes, colon, minutes. Now, if you want to enter AM and PM, you can, but you have to type a space. If you don't enter it, then it gets entered as military time. Now let's try this. And if you look up to the number group, it's got general, and just as with percentages and dates, we can enter time values and time number formatting as we type. 8:15:15 space. Actually, remember, as we saw in the first video, if I leave this space out, Excel, of course, thinks it's text. Both dates and times have to be entered correctly, or Excel thinks they're text. But as soon as I add a space and Control Enter, there's the correct alignment to let me know that this is a proper time value. If you look up into the formula bar, I don't get to see the serial number, which we'll learn about in just a second, but I can see 8:15:15 p.m. Now, if I want to enter military time, 12 plus 8 to make 8 p.m. would be 20:15:15, Control Enter. The number formatting is showing us military time, but up in the formula bar, I see 8:15:15 p.m. Now, there are some great tricks for entering time values quickly, and the key is, all you have to do is enter significant digits and either A for AM or P for PM. So watch how easy it is to enter 8 a.m., 8 space A, Control Enter, and up in the formula bar I can see hour, minutes, seconds, space, and AM. For 5:15, I have to enter all of the significant digits, so 5:15 space P, Control Enter, and there's 5:15 p.m. And just as there is a great keyboard for entering the current date when you're entering transactional records, there's a great keyboard for the current time. Control Shift semicolon. So let's try it. Control Shift semicolon. 8:48 p.m. and enter. Now we can enter dates and times together. Control semicolon for today's current date. Space. Control Shift semicolon to enter the current time. And that is a date time value. Now we need to figure out what's going on. What is the serial number under times? And I'll just tell you right up front, when we enter 8 a.m., it enters the proportion of a 24-hour day. Now let's take this in a couple steps. 8 space A, Control Enter. I see up in the formula bar that's time. I'm just going to leave that there as a trail. 8 space A, Control Enter, and then Control Shift tilde to wipe away the number formatting. I can see it has a custom time number formatting. Control Shift tilde, and sure enough, there's general 0.3333. Yep, anytime you enter time, Excel takes hours, in our case 8, and divides by 24. So down here, if we simulate what Excel did when we entered 8 a.m., 8 divided by 24, Control Enter. Sure enough, 1 divided by 3, or 8 divided by 24, 0.3333, a bunch of repeating decimals. And if we do this in reverse, come up and apply time number formatting, well, of course, that works also. And if we have hours and minutes, so for example, 5 minutes after 8 equals, open parentheses, there's the hour part, plus 5 divided by 60, that'll give us the proportion of an hour. Add those two together and then divide by 24. So 5 minutes after 8 would be, well, there's the time number formatting. Control Shift tilde, 0.3368055556. Control Z. Now let's scroll down, because what does this mean for formulas? What if I want to calculate hours worked? Well, let's try it. Similar to dates, later date minus earlier date, we're going to start off by taking equals the later time minus the earlier time. And that makes sense because 5:15 p.m. is a much bigger decimal than 8. If I Control Enter, it actually pulls the number formatting. And for a moment, it makes it look like it worked, right? 9 hours, 15 minutes. But could I multiply that by hourly wage? Nope, because Control Shift tilde, as we know, 9 hours, 15 minutes divided by 24 is some decimal. A decimal times an hourly wage does not work. Well, what does Excel do? We enter time, it divides by 24. So what we do is we bump it back up by multiplying by 24. So I'm going to force subtraction first, times 24. When I Control Enter, Control Shift tilde, there it is, 9.25 hours. Now we can multiply that by hourly wage, and we'll get gross pay, for example. Now, time in, time out, like when you have a lunch period. This would be the lunch period right here. Well, that's no problem either. In parentheses, you take end time 1 minus start time 1, and then you add the second bit of time that they work, plus end time 2 minus start time 2. Close parentheses, and you have to multiply by 24. Control Enter, Control Shift tilde. And there we have hours worked, and we can multiply that by wages. Now, just as with date number formatting, we had M for month, D for day, Y for year. For time, we have H for hour, M for minute, and S for seconds. The colon will help Excel custom number formatting not mix up M for month or minute. Now let's try this. These are all the same times. Here are the decimals. And no matter how much we change the number formatting, the decimals are always the same. Control 1. And let's try to add a lead 0. So 2 H's or 2 M's or 2 S's. There it is. Instead of 8 colon, it's 08 colon. Control 1. We can add the second H colon SS, and now it will show the seconds also. Click OK. And finally, Control 1. If we remove the AM, PM altogether, then of course we get military time. Click OK. All right, so time, the big trick is it's actually a proportion of 24-hour day. And once you know that, then any formulas you need to build, that helps, right? Since Excel divided by 24, we multiply to bump it back up, either with just end minus start time or when we have a lunch break. All right, let's go over to the sheet time NF. These are just some examples for you. Here's the serial number. Here's the number formatting code used, and this is how it's displayed. Now let's come over and look at formulas 21 to 23. Now on this sheet, we get to do payroll time calculations. And payroll calculations are, even though there's lots of programs to do this automatically, there are a lot of people in the world that use Excel for payroll. And of course, if we're going to get the correct answer, it depends on us knowing that a time value is whatever the hours divided by 24. All right, hours worked for char day long equals, in parentheses, later time minus earlier time, close parentheses, times 24. Now I'm going to Control Enter. I don't want that number formatting there. And unfortunately, our formulas are always pulling the number formatting. That's where that keyboard comes in when you're doing payroll, Control Shift tilde. Now, do not round the hours because that messy decimal is actually representing the correct number of minutes. It's only when we get to money or other situations where you're required to round. Hourly wage times hours worked equals, this is where we use round. Hours worked times, and I'm going to go get that wage. And I want to show you, we need all these decimals. And if I click on number and hit F9 to show you what this evaluates to, we need all of those messy decimals there. But now once we have it, and this is money, this is where we round. Control Z, comma 2, close parentheses, Control Enter. So for this one day, 142.34. Now char day actually worked Monday to Friday. So we want to create a formula to spill all the hours, add, put in the wage per hour, and then calculate gross pay for the week. All right, in H17, we're going to use this formula right here. And by the way, the commutative property of addition says you can do subtraction and addition in any order. I always start with the times before lunch and then add the times after lunch. But you can do it in whatever order you want. Equals, open parentheses, and I'm going to arrow over to end time 1 and then use Control Shift down arrow to highlight the whole column, minus arrow over to start time 1, Control Shift down arrow. That's before lunch. Plus arrow, and I can't use Control Shift arrow here because it goes all the way down. Really, I want to arrow over, hold Shift, and then arrow, minus arrow, arrow, Control Shift down arrow, close parentheses. So using a dynamic spilled array formulas, we're going to calculate the time worked for each day. Don't forget to multiply by 24. Now when we Control Enter, the formula pulls the number formatting over, but only for the top cell. So Control Shift tilde. Now we have the hours worked for each day. We want to add these, Alt equals, it properly gets H17. That's the cell where the dynamic spilled array formula lives. That pound is the spilled range operator. It says, hey, please get everything from that top cell. Enter. 35.76 4.75, enter. Gross pay. Now remember, we keep all the messy decimals for hours, but when we get to gross pay, since it's money and we're going to use this somewhere else, we want wage per hour times total hours for the week, comma 2, close parentheses. And by the way, we need them there, and when we make the calculation right here, I always use F9 to evaluate and Control Z, but that little screen tip shows you the result. We need all those messy decimals here, the result of multiplication, but now we're going to round. Control Enter, $1,344.80 for Charday as gross pay for the week. All right, on this sheet, we didn't have any end times that were past midnight. That's called a night shift. We want to go over to formulas 24 to 26 and see how to do that. All right, here we're going to talk about night shift time calculations. Now we have an employee who checks in at 8:20 p.m. and checks out at 2:05 a.m. If we do our normal formula equals supposedly later time minus supposedly earlier time, well, we're going to get a fence. That's Excel telling you you're not allowed to have negative times. And why is it negative? Well, 2 a.m., 5 minutes divided by 24 is much smaller than 20 hours, 20 minutes divided by 24. Now, the easiest way to deal with this is to not use just time values, but use date time values. Here's 11/21, 8:20, and this is the next day, 2:05. If we highlight these and Control Shift tilde, I bet you can guess what's in the cell because dates are number of days since December 31st, 1899, and times are the proportion of a 24-hour day. So when you combine date and time, it's just the integer plus a couple decimals. Control Shift tilde, and sure enough, that's 17, this is 18. This is almost all the way to 18, and this is a little bit past 18. Control Z. So when we do our formula equals later date time minus earlier date time times 24, Control Enter, we don't even get the number formatting being pulled. We just see 5.75, which is exactly how many hours were worked. Now, if we're not afforded the luxury of using date time values and we have to use time values, then we have to investigate this fence. I'm going to select the cell, and that's negative time number formatting, so Control Shift tilde, and we get minus 0.76. Smaller decimal minus a bigger decimal, that's exactly the correct number. But what we need for 5 hours, 45 minutes worked is the exact distance between minus 0.76 and 1. And the way we can get that, F2, is we simply have to add 1. 1 plus negative 0.76 gives us exactly that 2.3 something something. Control Enter. Well, there it is as time number formatting, 545, Control Shift tilde. And that will work, except for if we have a column of employees, some of them working day shift, some of them working night shift, F2, that's not going to work. If I change this to 11 p.m., well, then it's exactly 1 too big. 0.111 is exactly what we need for this particular number of hours worked. Control Z. What if we could create a formula element that saw when it's night shift and added 1, and when it's not, it added 0? Well, we can do that. We just have to think back to video number 2. True and false value. How do you convert true and false to 1 and 0? Any math operation. So right after the math operation, in parentheses, we have to think up a logical test that says when it's night shift. Well, that's easy. Is this time less than the start time? Close parentheses right here. It's true, plus true is plus 1, so of course that works. 545 with number formatting. If I change this to 11 p.m., you got to be kidding me, it got it right. And here's why. F2, it asks the question, is this time less than this one, and you can see it's false. Plus false is plus 0. Control Enter, Control Z to bring it back to 205. Now F2, we simply have to put all of this in parentheses, times 24, Control Enter, Control Shift tilde. There's our 5.75. Now there's a way to simulate the logic here, and it involves using the mod function. Over to the side I have a link that shows exactly how the algorithm works inside the mod function. But it is equals mod, and mod usually takes a number, divides it by something, and gives you the remainder. In number, you simply do your later minus earlier, comma, and you divide by 1. That's our formula. Control Enter, Control Shift tilde, there's the decimal F2, times 24, Control Enter, and there's our 5.75. A little bit easier than this formula right here. All right, in this video we talked all about date and time values, number formatting, and formulas. We saw how to do night shift calculations. We saw how to do payroll. We talked about time number formatting, time serial numbers. We talked about how to extract certain attributes from a serial number date, like year and month. We talked about the amazing EDATE and end of month functions when you need to move a certain months from a particular date. We saw how to add days and subtract days from dates, and we saw how to count days between two dates, including work days only. We saw how to calculate the number of days and either not include the first or include the first. We talked about date number formatting, date serial numbers, and on the very first sheet, there is a list of all 26 amazing functions we did. All right, that's Excel Basics number 4. So far, we've already had more fun than you thought possible with Excel. But number 5 and many others to come, we're going to have more fun with Excel. All right, we'll see you next video.